Tonight, the new video just in. The B-2 bombers that hit Iran landing back in the U.S. And our new reporting, how Iran threatened President Trump just before the strike. Inside Operation Midnight Hammer, our first look at those B-2 bombers that flew the 36-hour mission. Plus, the decoy mission sent in to distract Iranian forces as American bombers dropped 14 30,000-pound bombs. The president watching it all play out from the Situation Room. Satellite images showing the scene after, including the holes made by those bunker buster bombs. So how much damage was done to Iran's nuclear program? And where is the Ayatollah tonight? The reported succession plan he just approved. Plus, Iran's private warning to President Trump, threatening if the U.S. hit Iran, they could activate sleeper cells in America, as the Department of Homeland Security warns of a heightened threat environment. The UN meeting in an emergency session, Iran blasting the Trump administration, as Vice President Vance says the U.S. is, quote, not at war with Iran, but is at war with Iran's nuclear program. Iran responding tonight, striking Israel again, injuring dozens in new raids. Israel delivering some of its deepest attacks yet. Richard Engel on the ground in the middle of the spiraling regional conflict. American bases and embassies now on high alert. Also tonight, back here at home, parishioners running for their lives. The terrifying moment a man started shooting at a Michigan church. A hero security guard taking out the gunman. The stunning video of a helicopter trying to land when suddenly the pilot loses control next to an outdoor restaurant. What went wrong? Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Llamas.
And good evening and welcome to this special edition of Nightly News. America bracing for retaliation after those U.S. strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. This new video showing our B-2 bombers returning to Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri after that historic 36-hour round trip. Massive crowds, you see them here gathering today in Tehran, condemning the move as Israel again strikes Iran. Military officials sharing flight paths and a detailed timeline of Operation Midnight Hammer. You can see before and after images of those strikes and the 3 deep holes shown here, the spots where the bombs hit, including impact to that key Fordo nuclear site deep inside of a mountain. The U.S. military using 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs to try and penetrate it. The Pentagon saying, quote, all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction. And now, NBC News has learned Iran sent a message to President Trump directly, warning if he took military action, Iran could respond by unleashing terrorist attacks. Our team tonight spread from Washington to the Middle East. We want to start with Peter Alexander at the White House because, Peter, I know you have that new reporting just in that Iran directly threatened America.
Tom, tonight NBC News has learned that message from Iran was conveyed to President Trump by an intermediary during last week's G7 summit, warning the president if he launched airstrikes against Iran's nuclear facilities, Iran could respond by unleashing terrorist attacks on the U.S. by activating sleeper cells it has inside this country, according to 2 U.S. officials, all as we learn new details about those historic strikes. Tonight, the new video, B-2 bombers returning to their Missouri base after those secretive strikes. And now our first look at the targets they hit inside Iran. These before and after images show the massive impact of the U.S. attack on Isfahan, one of 3 Iranian nuclear facilities hit.
Initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction.
The commander-in-chief with this declaration overnight.
I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Pentagon officials say it's too soon to tell, but tonight the U.S. is also preparing for potential Iranian retaliation, though the Trump administration emphasizes the attack was intended as a limited one-time strike.
We're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program.
President Trump inside the Situation Room with Vice President Vance, his Secretaries of State and Defense, as well as Chief of Staff Susie Wiles and Joint Chiefs Chairman Dan Kane. The president issuing this warning to the Iranian regime.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen.
The historic U.S. military operation, complex and choreographed. The nuclear sites targeted: Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo, buried deep beneath an Iranian mountain. The U.S. adding the element of surprise, with the president giving the final green light 48 hours after announcing he would take up to 2 weeks to decide whether to strike.
Just a time to see whether or not people come to their senses.
First, the apparent decoys. On Saturday morning, B-2 stealth bombers launching from Missouri flying west. Hours before the B-2s used in the actual strikes headed east. The U.S. deploying 14 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs for the first time in a military operation. In this satellite image of Fordo, if you zoom in, you can see several holes from the bunker-busting bombs, which explode underground. The B-2s also dropping them on Natanz.
They dropped 30,000-pound bombs on a target the size of a washing machine.
U.S. submarines firing Tomahawk missiles to hit the Isfahan site. In all, 125 U.S. warplanes and 75 precision-guided munitions used. And the Pentagon says Iran never fired a single shot.
This operation underscores the unmatched capabilities and global reach of the United States military.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth pinning the praise on President Trump.
Many presidents have dreamed of delivering the final blow to Iran's nuclear program, and none could until President Trump.
And after Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard in March said Iran had an unprecedented amount of enriched uranium for a non-nuclear state, but that the Ayatollah had not ordered the development of a nuclear weapon, Secretary of State Marco Rubio argued the Iranian threat was urgent.
It doesn't matter if the order was given. They have everything they need to build nuclear weapons.
Peter Alexander, NBC News, the White House.
Now to the stealth operation. Tonight, we take you inside the warplanes and submarines that fired on Iran's nuclear facilities, the largest B-2 strike in U.S. history. NBC's Courtney Kube with the plan of attack tonight.
Tonight, new details about Operation Midnight Hammer. Just after midnight Saturday morning, a group of U.S. Air Force stealth B-2 bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base under the cover of darkness. Defense officials said they were headed to Guam, but 7 of the bombers quietly flew in the opposite direction.
Part of the package proceeded to the west and into the Pacific as a decoy, a deception effort known only to an extremely small number of planners and key leaders.
Flying in near silence to avoid detection, the bombers, each with 2 crew members and loaded with 2 30,000-pound bombs each, began their 36-hour round-trip flight, made possible by dozens of tankers refueling them in the air along the way. At 5 p.m. Saturday night, a large group of fighter jets joined the bombers as they approached Iranian airspace. At the same time, a U.S. Navy submarine launched 30 Tomahawk missiles towards Iran. Less than 1 hour later, the bombers entered Iranian airspace and some of the jets sped ahead, targeting any Iranian air defenses that could threaten the B-2s and ready to take on any Iranian jets that scrambled in their path. At 6:40 p.m., the U.S. began striking 3 locations, dropping 14 massive ordnance penetrators known as bunker busters on Fordo and Natanz, just as Tomahawk missiles crashed down on a 3rd site at Isfahan. By 7:30 p.m., all of the aircraft were safely out of Iranian airspace. According to the Pentagon, Iran never fired a shot at the U.S. aircraft.
Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see us. Throughout the mission, we retained the element of surprise.
The B-2 bomber, the only aircraft in the world that can deploy the massive bomb, this marked the largest B-2 strike in history. A historic mission cloaked in secrecy.
Courtney Kube joins us live from the Pentagon. And Courtney, this is the first time these types of bunker busters were used in combat. What else can you tell our viewers about them?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. These 30,000-pound bombs are uniquely suited to target underground facilities like the one at Fordo. They're equipped with GPS trackers, and their extremely strong casing allows them to punch through reinforced concrete and drill down up to 200 feet. You can see 3 of the holes that they made there in that picture before they even detonate. Tom?
Courtney Kube for us tonight. Courtney, we thank you. Now to the reaction in the Mideast. President Trump's decision to strike Iran's nuclear sites. Praised in Israel, but sparking anger inside of Iran, which is already retaliating. Here's Richard Engel.
Just hours after those U.S. airstrikes on its nuclear facilities, Iran fired dozens of ballistic missiles at residential areas of Tel Aviv, hitting this apartment building, causing significant damage, although few injuries. People here warned to go to bomb shelters.
So we've just moved into our own safe room in the place where we're staying. You can still hear the air raid sirens, and there have been some very loud impacts close by.
Israel kept up its attacks inside Iran, taking out more missile launchers. Israel's prime minister, who has been pushing the U.S. to join an attack on Iran's nuclear sites for decades, today congratulating President Trump.
History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons.
Many in Israel appeared to agree.
I want to thank President Trump because this could be the end of the war.
In Iran, there was anger in the streets. Iran's foreign minister today saying his country was in the midst of negotiations as the American bombs dropped.
There is no red line that they have not crossed. And the last one, and the most dangerous one, happened only last night.
But will Iran attack the U.S. directly? Its missiles and fighter jets don't have the range to reach the United States. But American troops and bases in the Middle East could be targeted. Iran's parliament voted to close the Strait of Hormuz, a potential economic attack. 20% of the world's oil flows through the strait. But no action. Parliament saying the move would have to be approved by Iran's supreme leader. The New York Times reports, citing 3 Iranian officials, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is now in a bunker and has picked replacements in case he's killed. Across the Middle East, the response from Arab countries was largely silent. Many calls for talks, no government offering to fight for Iran.
The only people in the world that are unhappy about what happened in Iran last night is the regime in Iran.
And Richard, I know you have some new reporting tonight about the potential Iranian threat there in the Middle East.
So 2 U.S. officials, Tom, tell us that the next 48 hours are of particular concern. But in terms of Iran's ability to respond, Iran is a shadow of its former self. It has lost most of its network of militias, and its biggest one, Hezbollah, today also didn't fire a shot. Tom?
Richard Engel for us from Tel Aviv. With the tensions escalating there in the Middle East, officials are issuing warnings of possible retaliatory attacks right here at home. Tom Winter joins me tonight. Tom, we just got a new warning in from the State Department. What's it saying?
Right, just as we're coming on the air, the State Department warning all U.S. citizens abroad about potential threats, acknowledging the situation in Iran and the Middle East. Here at home, it's kind of a two-pronged threat, the physical and the cyber. And tonight, law enforcement agencies in multiple cities have stepped up their presence at sensitive sites like houses of worship, cultural centers, and diplomatic sites. The goal is to stop someone who is angered by the war in the Middle East from conducting an attack here. They're also looking for cyber attacks, which could temporarily take a website offline or deface a site. And then there's the concern about people backed by Iran who could already be here. A sleeper cell? Well, in the last several years, law enforcement has charged multiple people in a range of plots tied to Iran, from an attempted assassination on then-President-elect Trump to a potential attack against an Iranian activist and journalist here in New York City. It's all on law enforcement's radar, Tom.
All right. We thank you for that, Tom. We want to turn out to the political reactions. Demonstrators taking to the streets today as the president takes on a Republican who slammed the attack on Iran. Senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson has this one.
Iran is a sovereign state.
Demonstrations tonight from D.C. to Atlanta to New York.
This was unquestionably an act of aggression and war. It's totally unacceptable.
Frustration there and fallout in Washington for President Trump, as some inside the president's own party sound a warning, including one-time top advisor Steve Bannon.
An overwhelming majority of the people don't want to get involved in any of this. Now we're involved. Kentucky's Thomas Massie, the rare Republican lawmaker criticizing the president's move.
We are exhausted. We are tired from all of these wars, and we're non-interventionists. What he promised us was we would put America first.
President Trump, late today, hitting back, writing, MAGA should drop this pathetic loser, Tom Massie, like the plague, with his allies now launching a campaign to try to unseat Massie in a primary. For years, President Trump said he would keep the U.S. out of wars, even as he also pledged to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear power.
They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. I will prevent World War III. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier.
Now, his vice president on Meet the Press defending the decision to enter into Israel's war with Iran.
I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives.
Many Democrats deeply critical, with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez calling the strike a disastrous decision, unconstitutional, and clearly grounds for impeachment. Other Democrats questioning the justification for and the effectiveness of the operation itself.
As far as we know, the Iranians were not in the process of developing a weapon. They were enriching uranium. It was clear what they had. My big fear right now is that they take this entire program underground.
As for that Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie, his concern over the strike is not the only reason he's finding himself a target of the president's. He's also only one of 2 Republicans who voted against that so-called big, beautiful bill. Tom?
Hallie Jackson for us. Hallie, thank you. When we return, the terrifying situation at a Michigan church. Worshippers scramble as an active shooter opened fire outside of the church. How a security guard took him down. That's next. We are back now with a terrifying encounter for some churchgoers in Michigan. An alleged gunman opening fire outside of Sunday service. Adrian Broadus now on how church staff prevented a mass shooting.
But that doesn't mean that we didn't have
terrifying moments as shots ring out at a church in Wayne, Michigan. Captured on a live stream, families seen running for safety after police say a 31-year-old man started shooting outside.
Please, everybody come to the back.
Desperate parents grabbing their frightened children. Parishioners ducking as they try to escape.
Mel's getting guns out of his car and going into the church.
It happened after 11 a.m. at the Cross Point Community Church just outside of Detroit.
The suspect exited his vehicle wearing a tactical vest, armed with a long gun and a handgun. He approached the church building and began firing his weapon.
According to authorities, a parishioner at the church hit the gunman with his vehicle. At least 2 staff members shot and killed the suspect outside of the building.
His motivations are unknown, but at this point it appears he was suffering from a mental health crisis.
I started hearing pop, 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 pop.
Wendy Bowden says she hid in a bathroom.
We were just praying and we didn't know what was going on, but we knew it was bad. And hearing all the gunshots.
Moments before the gunfire, children seen walking down the center aisle as fear erupted across the church. Tonight, the FBI assisting on scene. As the investigation continues, this congregation grateful.
I just want to hug my mom and take her home, make sure that she's safe.
Adrian Broadus, NBC News.
And still ahead tonight, the scary moment outside this restaurant when a helicopter crash landed right outside. We'll show you that video next. We are back now with an urgent search and rescue in California. The Coast Guard saying 6 people have died, 2 were hospitalized, and 2 more are missing after this boat capsized in Lake Tahoe. It apparently capsized in brutal conditions, 39-knot winds you see there, and waves 6 to 8 feet high. Also tonight, severe weather across the country. Look at this. This is the scene in Utah this weekend. Smoke rising from the Forsyth fire, burning more than 1,600 acres already. Plus, the heat is on with 159 million Americans under heat alerts across the central and eastern U.S. Temps are in the 90s to 100 range, but it feels like 100 to 110 through the start of the week. And look at this terrifying moment in Michigan with this helicopter crash landing outside of a waterfront restaurant today. The FAA says 4 people were on board. You can see the rotor kicking up dust as it smashes into the ground. Police say the cause of the crash is under investigation. This is incredible. No injuries were reported. When we come back, a historic attack in the Middle East and a historic moment for our country. What's next and what the world is watching for right after this. Finally tonight, we're back with moderator of Meet the Press, Kristen Welker. Kristen, the U.S. strikes in Iran mark a historic moment for the country, but also for President Trump.
Tom, that's exactly right. And for a president who campaigned on ending America's involvement in foreign wars, President Trump now finds himself immersed in one. I interviewed Vice President J.D. Vance this morning, and he argued Iran should use this moment to come back to the negotiating table. But the chances for diplomacy right now seem very slim, given that Iran has vowed to retaliate, Tom.
And Kristen, the president will now have to juggle this new international conflict as the country still faces critical domestic issues, including the economy and that spending bill.
Well, that's part of what's dividing the Republican Party right now, Tom. Many in the president's base want him focused on things like mass deportation and, of course, the economy, which remains the #1 issue for voters. The president today touting what he called great unity in the Republican Party and called for Republicans to pass his tax cuts and border security bill. But that's still facing opposition with no guarantee it can get over the finish line, Tom.
Kristen Welker on this new phase of the Trump presidency. Thanks to you, Kristen, and a big thank you to our entire team tonight and all weekend. That's Nightly News for this Sunday. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Llamas. Tonight and always, we're here for you. Good night. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.